Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order. And I want to note that with us tonight, we have Councilor Juan Anderson Burgos. I'm Councilor Linda Bacon, and this is Councilor David Bartley. Councilor Nelson Roman did let us know he would be unable to attend as we added in this meeting at our last meeting. Okay? And in the chambers is Councilor Joe McGivern. I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, could we suspend the rules and, oh, look who's here. Out of nowhere.
I just gave your...
I wish my mom happy birthday, and she said, go, you have to vote.
Bendito.
Okay. I stand corrected. Welcome, Councilor.
Madam Chair, we could suspend the rules and take agenda item 4 off the table and open, I think we're still in the public hearing,
Hang on.
Madam Chair? I don't think we
The
closed
public
it.
hearing was continued
Yes.
to tonight.
Yes, can we reopen the public hearing?
I'll second that, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we are in the public hearing for item 4 tonight, which is the zone change application of People's Bank at 1850 Northampton Street, Map 110, Block 00, Parcel 104, from the current zone R2 to proposed zone BL, Business Limited. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to address the committee on this zone change at this time? If you come forward, please give me your name, address, and make whatever comments you would like.
My name is John Driscoll, attorney, 330 Whitney Avenue, Holyoke, Mass., representing People's Bank. As you recall, this is a continuation of the hearing from 2 weeks ago. Since that time, originally the planning board was supposed to have their meeting on the 24th. They couldn't get a quorum, so we had the planning board hearing last night. There were four planning board members there. They voted unanimously to recommend to you the approval of the zone change. Now, I don't know whether they got you an actual report
Which
today.
I received at 3 o'clock today.
Very good. That's great. There was no opposition that was expressed at the planning board, and again at this hearing a few weeks ago. We would just ask your consideration to grant the zone change request based upon the information that's been presented to you today.
Thank you.
Matt Bannister from People's Bank is here if anyone were to have any additional questions.
Thank you.
Not as tall as he is. My name's Frances Wilson. I live at 1421 Northampton Street, and full disclosure, I am on the Historical Commission. And I just want to speak in favor of this because, am I not loud enough?
It's the air, the fan.
This whole arrangement has been a win-win all around for the bank, for the Historical Commission, for the city, for One Holyoke. And it makes no sense to me to not have this approved. So I just strongly support it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard from the public on this matter? Seeing none?
Madam Chair, did you want to, it's only 2 paragraphs, did you want to read that letter into the record? And then
Well, we can read it in during the public hearing or after. I'm happy to read it in during the public hearing. The letter is dated July 31st, addressed to me regarding recommendation R2 to BL, 1850 Northampton Street. Dear Councilor Bacon, please be advised that at its July 30th, 2018 meeting, the Holyoke Planning Board discussed the above referenced zone change request. After consideration of all information and testimony presented during the public hearing, the board voted 4-0 to recommend to the Ordinance Committee of the City Council that the zoning map change request be approved. The board found that the proposed zone change was appropriate on this part as this parcel abuts multiple adjacent parcels in the BL zone, and the change in zoning both A, protects neighboring residents from adverse impacts through increased setback requirements, and B, allows for the redevelopment of this commercially viable parcel now that the historic residential structure once present here has been relocated for reuse. If you have any questions regarding this decision, please feel free to contact me. Very truly yours, Christian LaChapelle, Chairman, Holyoke Planning Board. So now that's read into the record during the public hearing. I'd be interested and welcome to the chambers, Counselor Sullivan, and member of the committee, Counselor Lisi. I'd be interested to entertain a motion to close the
Motion to
public
close the
hearing.
public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So you have all the information before you. It's a
Motion to approve the
unanimous
zone change.
recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
So this committee is recommending to the full council unanimously to approve the zone change for this parcel to BL. Thank you. So returning to regular order, these are new
Well,
public.
Madam Chair, just a point of order, I think for number 3, for Lynch School, I thought we had an email relative to that. I saw the, I think.
We do, but we can take
You
it.
want to hold off on that?
Yeah, I'd rather just go
Okay.
in order at this point.
Motion take,
I mean, I can say at this point, we have no recommendation on Lynch School from the planning board. If-
Right.
If
So that's what I was
that
gonna
is
say, so.
information that is pertinent to anybody in the audience.
well, I'm not really sure if we can move, okay, so.
We got an email from Marcos with a recommendation.
That was for this.
On people's,
Not that one. Okay, so it's a public hearing, Madam Chair, number 1?
yes.
Okay, motion to take number 1 off the table and open the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 1 is a petition of Rise Holdings, formerly GTI, for a special permit to amend an existing permit to allow a marijuana manufacturing establishment in the existing building on 28 Appleton Street, Holyoke.
Good evening, Jack Ferreter, 1669 Northampton Street, Holyoke, attorney representing Rise. This is the facility that you approved and the full city council approved for medical growing. And because the regulations have changed, and as you've seen on TV, the $8 million has been spent in Holyoke building the grow facility. The first harvest is going to be in a week. And so this is real, this is up and running, and will soon be producing a lot of tax revenue for the city of Holyoke. And so this is merely changing the permit from growing for medical reasons only to growing for medical and recreational reasons. And I know Councilor Lisi had a question last time about how you keep track of which is medical and which is recreational. And so every plant has a barcode on it. And so it will be scanned, and certain plants, all the way from being a tiny little plant until they go out the door, you'll be able to tell which one is recreational and which one is medical. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions. But there, as a result of this, so we already have a letter from the police chief. We have the shortest letter you've seen so far from the planning department. And so we think that you're fully informed on what's going on, simply a change from medical only to adding recreational, no other changes. No building changes, no security changes, just different barcodes.
I'm just looking to make sure I have the police one, but is maybe the same as the original one?
No, we got a new one
Hang on, I just wanna-
based on the recreational permit. It's the same
Okay.
letter you've seen,
Yeah.
that it's a living document and subject to change, but we do have one from the former chief.
It may be somewhere else in the... Counselor Lisi?
Thanks for coming down, Jack. So a couple of questions. So we had recently permitted GTI, and now GTI is going to be Rise Holdings. And I know that GTI was kind of like the front runner in terms of drafting and building a host community agreement with the city. And then in addition to the host community agreement, there were two additional funds that were supposed to be dedicated towards one and wards 2. And I know that there's been an effort in the city for our new ordinances to make sure that anyone that is coming into the city doing medical, recreational, marijuana, manufacturing, retail sales are all going to be doing the same boilerplate host community agreement. So how does that impact what we received and negotiated with GTI compared to what RISE is now going to be holding with the city?
So the change from GTI to RISE is simply a name change. It's simply branding. Actually, our favorite reporter did a great job explaining that story. So it's simply a name change. So that agreement that was entered into by GTI is fully enforceable against RISE because they're the same entity. It's simply a name change for branding purposes. Somebody on Madison Avenue said RISE is a better name than GTI.
So essentially, there's no one. There's no revision or amendments being made to the host community agreement that we've passed already.
No change whatsoever.
Okay. And then you may not know this at this point in time, but do you know, have these two separate funds been established for Wards 1 and Wards 2?
Yes, I think Councilor Roman can attest to the fact that funds have been flowing into Holyoke for Wards 1 and 2. To charities that, or to nonprofits that he is not a part of.
Well, yeah, I think Councilor Roman wants to
I
speak to
know,
that a
I
bit.
just wanted to make sure you're all set.
Yeah.
Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you. And full disclosure for this evening, before tonight's meeting, I filed a perceived or conflict of interest form with our city clerk's office to make sure that there was no impropriety, because at last meeting, one of our wonderful companies said that they were giving Nelson $10,000. So there is no Nelson Roman fund at all whatsoever. But yes, GTI, I can only speak to Ward 2. For the last 2 years, we've submitted our $7,500, or RISE, sorry, I'll try to use the proper name now, gentlemen. So this year, the money, there's a movie night actually happening in August in 3 community parks throughout Holyoke. The Balante Theater Company got it. Kate's Kitchen, Margaret's Pantry, just got $1,000 to install air conditioning units in their basements of Kate's Kitchen because there's no AC units. The Cosecha Festival from Nuestras Raíces. I can provide the committee with a full list of the ones from Ward 2. And this is the second year where all the money's come in and it's gone out right away 100%. And what we've done with other community, other agencies and organizations that are coming in from the cannabis industry is that there is, and we talked about this last time, the neighborhood councils of Holyoke are asking them specifically to be a part of a green fund where that money will be put in. Eventually the GTI money will go in there as well towards youth enrichment, cultural events, underemployment activities and events. And again, that money doesn't benefit me or the company or agency I work for. It has, the cannabis industry will have 2 seats, community reps will have 2 seats, and it's its own mini granting organization. But for the last 2 years, without fail, GTI, the Ward 2 money, $7,500 has come in and come out, and all the checks have been on time. And so I just wanted to report that to the committee.
Thanks. If I may, Councilor.
I'm sorry?
If I may continue.
Oh,
then.
sure.
So I'm going to just note for the record here, and it's probably not something that we'll be able to get into tonight, is that I'm surprised that the funds are being dispersed directly to a community organization as opposed to coming through the city council. So I think that when I had voted for it, there was an understanding that the council was going to be in possession of 2 dedicated funds to disperse into the wards. And so to hear that the money's coming through and directly distributed in some unknown process to the council to community groups and agencies is surprising to me, and I'll probably be following in order to follow up on that.
If I may, through the chairman, that was not the intention. The intention is that the community gets to determine the process. So the neighborhood associations with the ward councilors and the community have a very public process, at least in Ward 2. And the checks aren't cut to one institution, they're cut directly. We provide a list directly to the agencies that the checks are cut out to. So they're made directly from GTI to all the organizations that are recommended, and a copy is submitted to the mayor's office. But the hope is for me, and we saw this similar to a fire fund or anything like that, is that the institution of government doesn't control what this industry contributes to the community, is that the community has a say in it and that the industry gets to have a say in it. So hence going forward, I'll oppose any order that says that in the future, is that you get on the boilerplate template and just agree to be a part of this community fund that allows the community and the industry and anyone who wants to have a very transparent process give money directly back to the community to avoid any notion of boss politics. That's why the fund was created outside, where the neighborhood associations get to have a say and the industry has a say. I'm grateful, but the intention has always been, and if you look back on the records, is that those two communities and organizations and those affected by it, so those living in Wards 1 and 2 get to determine where it is. So specifically for Ward 2, the South Holyoke Neighborhood Association, the Springdale Ingleside Neighborhood Association by Paul and Audra, and the Churchill Neighborhood Association run by Felicita and her group get residents together, they look at proposals, they submit the recommendations to me, they vote on it, they say this is what we want, and then I submit that list to GTI. This is the second year, and those checks get directly cut to those institutions or those organizations, not just one big check and then one person decides. I can't speak to the Ward 1 funds or money. I do know that they have a fiscal sponsor in one Holyoke CDC, which is respected, and so that's always been the intention, and for the industry going forward, that's the hope, is that it's not determined by government, it's determined by the people.
So interesting information perhaps for future discussions, but we're going to focus on the special permit tonight. And so I'd like to read into the record, there was reference made to a letter from the planning department, which I did receive July 20th. And I would just like to read it into the record. I don't see a hard copy immediately in front of me. It was addressed to me, and it's regarding Rise Holdings, Inc., formerly GTI, 28 Appleton Street, Zone IG, MME. Dear Councilor Vacan, beginning on July 16th, 2017, planning staff had the opportunity to review materials submitted by Rise Holdings, who is seeking to amend its special permit, so we are in 2018, just so we're all oriented, to allow for adult use recreational manufacturing at its existing medical manufacturing facility located at 28 Appleton Street. After reviewing the submittal materials based on the City of Holyoke zoning ordinance section 7.10, medical marijuana facilities and other applicable sections, 10.1.6.1 and 10.1.6.2, staff found that as it was permitted formerly as an RMD, it is only expanding within the current definition of MME, marijuana manufacturing establishment, and that there are no substantive changes to the site plan itself. In the event there are any proposed changes to the approved plan, prior to their implementation, the applicant will be required to come back to the City Council for review and approval and file as an amendment to the special permit if appropriate. Please consider that revisions to the plans submitted beyond the original application's submittal date of June 19th, 2018 may result in additional department review and additional information, and or details may be requested in subsequent letters to the applicant as plans are revised. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Sincerely, Jeff Burkott, Principal Planner. So now that's in the record.
Thank you.
Any, Councilor Tallman has joined us in the chambers. Any other councilors wishing to be heard? Any members of the public who wish to come to the microphone to speak in favor or in opposition to this amendment to the special permit for Rise Holdings? Please give your name, address.
Hi, I'm David Caputo, 903 Dwight Street in Holyoke, and as someone who's setting up a similar facility across the street, I just wanted to express my support and encourage the committee to approve the permit. I think they've done a nice job over there, and I look forward to having them as neighbors.
Thank you. Councilor Bartley?
Jack, Where's your client so far with employment and that sort of thing? How many employees are there, and how many from Holyoke, if you know?
There are currently 23 employees.
Yep.
There will be 60 by the end of the year. Of the existing employees, 40% are from Holyoke, and 50% are considered to have minority status. 50, I'm sorry, 50. So 40% from Holyoke, 50% minority.
Okay, so there's 23 right now. Did I hear you say that right, Jack?
Yes,
Okay, and then your client expects to have 60 by the end of the year?
the end of this calendar year,
Oh,
yes.
that's great news. Okay, so one of the, and I really want to thank your client through you for keeping on point with the, the language in the host agreement is really loose, in my humble opinion, Jack. But, a good faith effort. That's just so incredibly vague that no one can possibly define that. As I think we spoke last time, 2 weeks ago, or maybe, I think we did. After we close the public hearing, I'm going to see how the committee feels about putting a percentage. What would your client feel would be a reasonable Holyoke percentage?
I'm not sure that you can,
Well,
I would defer to your law department, but if you can, I think that what they have, what RISE has, is an internal policy to hire as many people as possible. There's been, Councilor Roman has been very helpful in reaching out. There's been a paper application, so it's not just available online. There's a Spanish application in paper and online, and Councilor Roman has done his best to direct people to RISE. And we would say that that the best efforts that's in the host agreement, which is used not only in Holyoke but throughout the Commonwealth, is really what should be continued. That putting any additional burden, when a company is already working with local counselors, with local organizations to hire as many people as possible. As the old saying goes, if it's not broke, why would you try to fix it? So I think in this case that 40% right now and 40% from Holyoke and 50% minority, I think that's a great showing. And if anyone has candidates, please send them down. That's the word we want to get to counselors. If you have people who want to apply, send them down.
Okay, so Jack, I appreciate your answer on that one. I'm going to phrase it as broadly as I possibly can, but I would just direct you and your client to special permits in the ordinance section 9.3.3, and if you review that language, you can see how broad that is. And I think that gives us a pretty fair amount of flexibility, and so that's what I'm going to try and encourage the members of the City Council to look to. And I would also say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Jack, we've been doing this for a period of months. This hasn't been going on for 19 years or anything like that. This is kind of brand new. So I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just saying this is just very new. The other thing I want to throw, what I'm going to suggest as well, and we'll see how far this gets, is a condition that the business will always pay a property tax to the city of Holyoke. I'm also going to make a motion that if there are security employees, that they'd be either retired Holyoke police officers and or police officers from other communities that live in the city of Holyoke. Again, we want the preference to Holyoke residents. For sure, for security positions or, of course, non-security positions. just while I have the microphone, I don't recall anything, just on the side point, I know the chair wants to push this to another conversation, but I don't recall any conversation or any commitment to put funds through the Holyoke City Council. In fact, I would oppose that. I would want the funds not to ever go through the Holyoke City Council. I would want them to go directly, as I believe they're intended, to the community organization. So I want to make that clear for the record, Jack. Just so one thing I didn't really think about this the last time, and I'm sure it's an easy one for you. The site is pretty well ADA compliant. That's
Yes, has to be.
has to be, right? Okay, I just was, and a constituent brought that up to me who's, he has disabilities, and I just said, let me just ask the question, because I assumed that was true, but I just wanted to hear you confirm that, Jack. So thank you for that. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? Counselor Sullivan.
Yeah, I would just like to encourage to get the word out to RISE. I spoke with over a dozen 18 to 25-year-olds over the last 2 weeks, all residents of Ward 1. Not a single one of them were even aware of the existence of GTI/RISE. So if there's other venues out there to make a more concerted effort, be it through Holyoke 1 CDC, through ROCA, through some other venues, because despite the efforts going on, the word just is not out there that jobs are available. And I myself will be sending some of these kids, now that the invitation is out there, directly. And
It absolutely is, Mike, and please have them, if they don't want to come directly, have them get in touch with Michael Moriarty. Michael is, closely in touch with RISE, so he can direct them and help them through whatever paperwork. Michael's been a great resource, as his other counselors.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Not seeing any other questions. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard?
Motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the public hearing is now closed. Is there a member of the committee that at this point feels comfortable making a motion? You want to move forward with the rest of the agenda and come back around to it later, or what is the preference of the committee?
If I may, Counselor.
Counselor Lisi?
Thank you. To me, given the change in our ordinances, there's not a substantive change happening at this business location in terms of what they're doing. It's just that the state law has changed to allow for recreational use, and now some of the plants are going to be dedicated to recreational in addition to medical use. And so, given that there isn't really much of a substantive change in the nature of the business happening there, I'm happy to say that I'll motion to approve the amendment to the special permit.
So we have a motion and a second on the table. So is there any discussion? Counselor Bartley?
Thank you. I'd like to offer a few conditions to the special permit, if I may. I can just do them one at a time. They're in no particular order. I want to have I motion to have as a condition that the entity, as a condition of special permit, always pay property taxes. And this is, and we'll put it to particular language, to the extent permitted by federal, state, local laws for all these. So that'll be the preamble to any of these. And I just want to say I know the members of this body are aware of it, but this is a special permit, and our ordinance says special permits may be granted with such reasonable conditions, safeguards, or limitations on time or use, including performance guarantees, as a special permit granting authority may deem necessary to serve the purpose of the ordinance. That's pretty broad language. And so So I'm going to lean on that language to really weigh in for the city of Holyoke and its residents. So I'd like the first motion to be, and we can take them all up at once or segregate them as a chair.
Whatever you prefer.
Well,
I'm fine with either.
I'll throw them all out, Chair, if you don't mind. That the entity always pay the commercial property tax rate, so whatever that is,
For the life of the contract?
for the duration of special permit.
Okay.
That a percentage of Holyoke residents, and I'm going to say 30% as a reasonable number, a minimum of 30% of non-security employees are residents of the city of Holyoke. Not when they hire and move out, that they'll all be residents of the city of Holyoke. So that's two. That a security person would be either a retired Holyoke Police Department employee or a retiree of another police department that now lives in the city of Holyoke.
Are you saying that preference be given?
Yes. And I think we talked about this last week, although it might be redundant, that we were talking about on-site consumption, so I think they need a permit for that anyhow, so a license for it, so I'm going to hold off on that one. So those are the three.
And right now, they're seeking only manufacturing.
That's right.
So there would be no consumption of any sort in a manufacturing setting, correct?
Correct, and that's not allowed by law at this point.
Correct. I just wanted to confirm.
That's it.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to add? Counselor Sullivan?
I just have a question through the chair regarding the property tax. There, I believe, a tenant in the building. So, it'd be on
The owner.
material, but not real estate tax.
The owner of the building would be the one liable for the tax.
Right. I'm at a loss to understand the need for that in a special permit. Yeah, I mean, it's.
Counselor Bartley, do you wish to?
If he's asking me a question, I'm
Yeah.
happy to
Are you
answer.
asking through the chair? Counselor
Through
Bartley?
the chair, yeah.
Sure. So my intention on this, Mike, is that just step back, Brett. This is supposed to be a tax benefit to the city of Holyoke. So we understand that there's a 3% take that that this body has agreed to receive from the retail sales. That's great. But one of the big issues I think we've seen over at least my 6.5 years on the board is the number of nonprofits that are in the city of Holyoke that are 501c3 status. I mean, like a church, for example. I mean, they are, of course, icons of the community, and we respect them, but they don't pay property tax. I'd want to ensure that the lessee and through its lessor, the property owner, always pay a commercial property tax rate to the city of Holyoke. That they don't ever rent space from a 501c3 or another nonprofit that would be exempt from the commercial tax rate, because would be a huge financial loss to the city. So, and as I preface this at the start, so, I mean, this is kind of new territory. I have seen this done in other host communities, so, and I'd be happy to reference them for you, where other host communities have that exact language. And I believe Salem comes right to mind, but I also believe Peabody does as well. So that is in there, and that has not been challenged, and so that is standing law right now. I don't see why Holyoke can't do the same thing. So again, it's just a benefit to the city, Mike. That's all.
Yep, no, thanks for the explanation.
Counselor Lisi?
It's under my understanding that if a 501c3 nonprofit has any sort of commercial tenant on its property, that then they have to be billed a commercial tax rate for that square footage. In the same way that if we have a home paying a residential tax rate and there's a home occupation business in that building, the square footage of the the home that's occupied by the commercial business is taxed at the commercial rate. I remember this very distinctly. I was on the board of Nueva when I first came to the city, and Nueva is a 501c3, but it had different CDCs that were actually commercial entities, and they were not exempt they did not have their tax exempt status in the city for that reason. So I don't think that this is, I feel it's just redundant, and while it creates an appearance that you're looking out for the city, I don't think that there's any jeopardy of the city not getting these commercial taxes from this type of entity, because at the state level, it says that these will be billed and taxed at a commercial rate, these marijuana facilities.
I'll recognize you in 1 minute. I just want to weigh in on this. The context that we've discussed this in a couple times is the context of the owning company of the property changing its status, so that therefore everything that they held would have its status changed. So this is sort of a preventive discussion that we've been having. It may be redundant, but I don't know that that makes it not allowable. But Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, I'll just say, if it's redundant, I guess that's on me. But wouldn't you rather have it be in law? And I'm sure the counselor was right in that, but, now we're relying on a memory. I mean, I'd rather have it written into our special, I'm sure her memory's excellent, but I'd rather not rely on memory. I'd rather have it written to our special permit so that we're sure. And if it's found out by the law department or between now and August 7th that there's extra layers of protection to assure that the city can receive a commercial tax benefit from this, then I'd be happy to withdraw the recommendation. But at this point, I cannot possibly, at this point, I just don't see a downside to it. They're in business. People are still coming in. I've made my remarks clear now a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's been a negative. Thank you.
Councilor Lisi?
Thank you. Attorney Farida, since you're still standing,
Close the public hearing. Did we close the public hearing?
so under suspension of the rule, motion to suspend the necessary rules to allow Attorney Farida to speak. It would be a member of the public that has information.
Well, we can't take in any more information in the consideration. I mean, we have the motion on the table relative to the decision. We really can't take in new information at this time. We had this debate at the last meeting. I mean, really just kind of rehashing familiar territory, so we really can't go there.
So motion to suspend the necessary rules and allow legal to speak.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Crystal, can you tell us who is the licensing authority of medical marijuana facilities?
Medical?
Of manufacturing, marijuana manufacturing and retail sales entities?
For adult use, it's Cannabis Control Commission, and for medical, it's Department of Public Health, I do believe.
Great. And in the bylaws that license these entities, do you know if they designate a tax status to these entities?
I don't know.
All right, thank you.
All set?
All set. I mean, I
Okay.
still would like to suspend the rules and allow the members of the public to speak, but
Well, we'd be violating the public hearing rules in that regard,
not,
so
no, because
unfortunately, we
we
can't do that.
we suspend the rules all the time to allow members of the public to speak. We do it all the time. We have a member of the public that happens to have information.
Okay, so,
Point of order.
Point of order. As chair of the committee, I would just say, I offered to the public on numerous occasions before the public hearing was closed, and that includes the city councilors, the opportunity to bring up any other. And I asked, if not once, at least 3 times, and so we just can't go back at this point. We have a motion before us to approve the amendment to the special permit. We've been in discussion on the motion. Council Roman.
I just have a question, Madam Chair, and I applaud my colleague on the employment and the retired police. I was just wondering if we could take each proposal or each amendment separately, like 3 separate ones, if that's okay, Madam Chairwoman? Because where I do agree, and I do want to applaud Councilor Bartley and a lot of the industry. Last meeting, I was the one that got up here and talked about employment percentages and numbers. And I do have to applaud the industry stepping up in a major way, saying, hey, we're willing to commit. What does that number look like? What does that agree to? And even in some of the MOU language that's being drafted with the neighborhood associations and committees I've seen, they would just want it to be softer language. We will strive for 33% or whatever my colleague offered today, as a standard that we're going to try to hit. But what if 1 year 4 employees quit? So, just in case, I love the reporting mechanism, Counselor. I think that's great. And still that standard to strive to, that we hold them accountable. I really applaud that. So I'm going to approve, and I'm going to vote to approve that provision and the provision about hiring retired police officers. I think everyone in the industry would love that, right? I don't think anyone's going to say no to that. I think that's great. If we have security personnel, if they can come from HPD and the retired HPD force, why not, right? Just as another section or area for us to hire local retired cops who did service to the city and now are continuing on their careers. And on the last provision with my colleague, if it's law somewhere else, I would love to see if it's codified somewhere else, why not try it? Why not give it a whirl and see? And again, I agree with the law department, and I know I reached out and spoke with Marcos regarding whether or not we as a body can do that. I didn't get the response yet back, Marcos, if we could or couldn't. In our host community agreements, around TIFs we can't, but there was no clear answer as to the contrary that we couldn't as a body. And I'm for one really excited, and I thank the industry after my challenge last time for really stepping up in a genuine way and saying, yes, we're committed to hiring local. One company went so far, and I won't mention names on the mic because I don't want to get you in trouble and you get yourself in trouble. They're saying I'm committing to 100%. I don't know if that's doable, but hey, I would love to see that on an annual report that you're saying 100% will be local. I think that's great. So I really applaud my colleague for putting these things in place. And I would remind this body, and I can't wait for us, Madam Chairwoman, to take up host community agreements as a body. I think that this body needs to ratify them, similar to Springfield, and that's our accountability measure. When the law department and the administration does whatever host community agreement with whatever industry, I believe that this body, similar to, again, the city of Springfield, should be the ratifying body on that. That's our check and balance to that system. So when these boilerplates come out or these templates come out, we could also look like my colleague just did for Salem and Peabody, right? Those are the 2 that you mentioned, Counselor? I apologize. I think that we should look at other host community agreements for whatever industries coming to town, not just cannabis, but we've seen other host community agreements that we never see. So I thank you for this. Oh yes, no, I can't wait, but I really applaud you, Councilor Bartley. I'd like to take them up separately, just in case 1 or 2 go up or down, but we could record our votes separately, and I thank everyone in the industry for reaching out to me, the community, and everyone. Thank you.
Council Lisi.
Thanks. The last thing I just wanted to say is that sorry, I got distracted at the end there. You go to Councilor Bartley first, and then
Council Bartley.
and then I'll take it up again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Right, so Nelson, I just want to thank you as well for your support and for your strong presentation on the July 17th meeting. I think that really helped. In fact, I know it really helped to really stand behind, especially in your leadership position in South Holyoke, and then I've got so many friends in the flats in South Holyoke that I see at the Y all the time, and they come up to me, Bartley, hey, thank you. So these are young guys, and they're so grateful to hear that, and hear it coming from you. But I say, hey, it's Nelson's leading the charge on that, so I'm just glad we could pitch in some way. And I just want to say, I'm happy to take these as separate votes. I realize that there may be some controversy here, although I fail to see how any of them negatively affect the city of Holyoke, which is really, Madam Chair, my sole reason for being here is just to try to help out the city of Holyoke in some kind of small way while I'm here. So if it is redundant, if there's a certain aspect of it that is not up to federal, state, or local laws, I said it. I preface it at the beginning, to the extent permitted by federal, state, or local law. I said it at the start. And then I reiterated 933 in the ordinances. That language is so broad, it gives us a tremendous flexibility. And again, and whoever wrote this, whoever crafted that language, I really would like to thank she or he for doing that, because it allows us that wide path to really, if we do our homework, to really come in and try to help out the taxpayers. How many times, Madam Chair, have we been here with, talk about nonprofits and people in tax title and all the rest of this? Now we've got a great community, great business model, and apparently popular business model come into the city, and we've got to give credit to the mayor for leading the charge on this and bringing in a new industry. You really have to give him credit for it, and I do for this. I mean, it's an industry that perhaps can save Holyoke from fiscal problems. But if we allow, Madam Chair, nonprofits to sort of take over the tax-paying entity, because they are private businesses. What do private businesses want to do? They want to maximize their profits, and they're going to do that every chance they get. Promises be darned. I mean, that host agreement, Madam Chair, is, well, I can't reiterate enough what Councilor Roman said. I mean, we've got to get our arms around it and try to put specifics on there. That language is so broad and so a good faith effort. Good gravy. I mean, I'm making a good faith effort here. Big deal. But I think what we want to do is really hone in on numbers and hold their feet to the fire. And if they're in profit, they're in business to make a profit. And if they can back out of something, just like we've seen with those TIFs a number of times, Madam Chair, over my 6.5 years here, they'll back out of it, and they won't show us any numbers, and they won't pay a nickel to the city. And what have we got? Okay, we got a fancy building on Jackson Street that pays no taxes. Oh, great. And we have no promise of jobs. Great. Well, big deal. Good for you. I mean, so you pulled the wool over Holyoke's eyes. That's on me and other members of this body, but that's not going to happen again. And I'm hopeful that we can try to put up a roadblock here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lisi?
The only thing I was going to add was that I just feel that we can't be adding numbers at random onto individual entities, and that if we want to do, 30%, 60%, they should be built into the host community agreements. They should be part of the boilerplates. They should be uniform across entities. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion before us, and we will take up the First Amendment and understand that the wording may be put in a little different verbiage than I'm reading for legal purposes. But the First Amendment would be that the owner of the property to which the special permit is given will remain a tax-paying entity that would not alter its status to avoid tax liability to the city, property tax liability to the city to the extent permitted by local, state, and federal law.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
No.
So that passes 4-1. The Second Amendment offered is that a minimum of 30% of Holyoke residents would be given hiring preference for the non-security positions to the entity granted the special permit.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to vote yes on that one.
All right.
And item 3, that preference be given for security positions to retired Holyoke Police Department members or retirees from other police departments that currently live in Holyoke.
I'll second that. Thank you.
So all in favor?
Aye.
No.
So 4-1. So those are the special conditions that we have added to the amended special permit.
I motion approve the special permit as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So yes, so the amended special permit will be recommended to the city council with a unanimous vote of this committee. It will be on the agenda for August 7th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to take,
7.
Item number 2.
Agenda, yeah, thank you, Nelson. I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to open a
Open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So item 2 is a petition of the Roman Catholic Bishop of Springfield, a corporation sole
Why don't you read it?
for Blessed Sacrament Parish for a 4.7.3 non-conforming structure special permit for a sign replacement at 1945 Northampton Street, Map 111, Block 00, Parcel 062. I will note in the public hearing that we did receive, or I have read earlier minutes from the planning board where they have reviewed this sign, and it's my recollection from their minutes that they had approved it from their point of view. I don't know that I have a specific letter in that regard, but
Chair.
I did see the minutes. Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, I just want to disclose, Madam Chair, I have not contacted the State Ethics Commission, but I will do so. I am going to take part in this, but I am a parishioner at Blessed Sacrament. I'm disclosing that. I have not contacted the Ethics Board. I will prior to the August 7th vote. And I'll put it, right now I'm going to participate in the consideration.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Good evening. So if you could just give us your name and address and run through your proposal?
Absolutely. Michael McDonough, attorney on behalf of Blessed Sacrament at 1945 Westfield Street, Northampton Street, excuse me.
Yeah, Mike, make sure you write into the microphone, okay?
Thank you,
Because
Counselor.
you
I
are
have-
on television, too.
I have with me Father Gentile, the pastor for Blessed Sacrament as well. We did apply to the planning board for an increase in the size of the sign. That was approved on July 11th, and I have the notice of decision and copies with me for the city council if you'd like to take those at this time.
Okay, that would be great. Thanks.
I also have a letter from the building commissioner voicing his support to the council for this petition. So in the first instance, we were required to obtain a permit, a special permit from the planning board because we're increasing the size of the existing sign on the corner of Westfield and Northampton Street.
Okay.
That was approved. In the second instance, we're requesting a special permit to keep the sign where it is. We're not trying to change the location. However, it's not next to a vehicular entrance to the building. It's only next to a pedestrian entrance to the church. Okay. It's always been there since the 50s. There's been no change here. We're not asking to change it or turn it. There's never been a complaint about it. Father Gentile tells me in the history of the parish. But, of course, we wanted to submit that to the council for approval. The new sign will have a digital display at the bottom of it, as indicated in the photograph. That will not stream. That will not change throughout the day. It'll be one message per day so that it's not distracting and so that it's in compliance with the city's bylaws. And the example would be spaghetti dinner on Saturday. That way, no one's required to go out and do the letters every time you have a change. Simply, it's a matter of convenience for the parish and its staff. The sign, a picture of the sign is provided. The location as well is provided with our application. And I have Father Gentile here as well if you have any questions for the pastor.
And just bear with us for a minute so that I can just pass this around. Oh, I don't have it.
Did you miss it?
I don't have it. It's, here we
look at
go.
that.
It was
Oh.
too big. I missed it.
Wow. Fancy.
I didn't recognize it as a sign.
I want to check it out.
See?
Whoa,
It looks more like a monument. No.
wow. No picture of Father up there. I don't get it. Look at that.
Counselor Lisi.
Mike, you all set?
Thank you for coming in. So I'm just looking quickly at this sign that you submitted, and the digital sign, it's not clear how big it is. And do you have any sense of how many like rows of text you could fit on there, or is it going to be one row? Would it be 3 rows?
No, just the one row.
It's going to be one row of
That's
text?
my understanding, Counselor.
So, and you think that on on one row you'd be able to fit like spaghetti dinner Sunday?
It might be 2 rows, Council. I'm kind of shooting from the hip on that one. I can supplement with more information from the sign company.
But overall, you've worked with the sign company and you think that this sign is going to fulfill your needs?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Bartley?
I know I can't say Bartley for re-election, Father, so I'm pretty sure that won't ever be up there. Ms. McDonough, Mike, there's no scrolling at all on that?
No scrolling. It's forbidden under the city's bylaws to have a scrolling electronic sign.
Well, right. Well, shockingly, we have another church that has, a legendary church. I mean, legendary for crying out loud. I mean, right at 300 Appleton Street, they have the Congregational Church. I mean, that's like an icon of Holyoke. As I don't tell Father this, but there's so much history in that church. But yet they have a scrolling sign, all sorts of things. Then we have a public school located at 500 Beach Street that has a scrolling sign and flashing and all sorts of other things. And remarkably, we as a community we survive. I'm shocked at that. So, but yours, Blessed Sacraments will just say. Well, can I ask Father, we'll just say, besides, we don't do spaghetti suppers that often, but we'll say mass schedule.
Mass schedule, air conditioned, things that would be static, open enrollment, something that we don't have the need to scroll. I mean, I don't see the purpose in it, and I don't want to, there may be other signs that do, but that's not my concern. I just want to take care of my parish and my church.
And then who'll be responsible for the content?
Would be the church.
So it would be
Myself, my secretary, maybe my DRE for religious classes, religious education classes. So any information that may be pertinent at the time for enrollment or mass schedules, midnight mass time, anything along those lines. It's not necessarily that would need to be scrolled.
Okay, so it would be for both the church and for the
school.
For the school. And so content would be at your direction or
Yes.
or your agent's direction.
Yes.
Okay.
I just have, under suspension of rules, a quick question for legal. So, Crystal, on this special permit, because it is a non-conforming structure, am I correct to understand we're really focusing on the placement of the sign and that the planning board really dealt with the size and the dimensions and the other aspects of the sign?
Was the special permit for non-conforming use?
Non-conforming structure.
And correct, you're just determining whether or not the extended non-conformity of it is a detriment
Or not.
or not.
So the placement, the location of it.
Well, the location, everything's the same, so all he did was increase the size. So you're just looking at that increase in size because the sign's already non-conforming. You're just looking, is that increase in size this horrible detriment?
Right, so and the reason I'm clarifying that is because I think we're getting into a lot of detail that's not really our purview relative to the content of the sign. So that's all. Thank you very much. Does anybody want to make a... Wait, don't we need to close the public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
But wait, before we do that, I just want to make sure that there's nobody in the public that has anything they want to say, either in favor or oppose in opposition to this permit. Dotting the i's and crossing the t's.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Isn't there a recommendation that needs to come from, like, we have the minutes, but that's not the recommendation that we should receive.
So my understanding is that this was a two-pronged process, that one piece of the process was the purview of the planning board, and the other piece of the process is the purview of the city council under special permit, kind of like the marijuana special permit. That's my understanding, so that this is our jurisdiction relative to the non-conforming structure. So so we can close our public hearing.
May I just address that point real quick?
Sure.
Building Commissioner, Mr. Cote, did clarify that in his letter and said that there's two things that we needed to accomplish, and that pending approval by the planning board with respect to size, and we had a public hearing and an advertisement, and there was no objection or issues. And unanimously, the planning board approved it based on the size issue, that the location now was a matter of jurisdiction for the city council alone, separate. And that Mr. Cote's approval was contingent on, of course, the planning board's approval of the size, which has been approved and provided to you.
Right. So,
Well,
We have the planning board's recommendation.
we do?
We do.
A written letter?
Yeah, a written letter.
no, this is R2 to BL. So, yeah, we're good. So, we have a motion before us to close the public hearing. Counselor McGivern.
Before you close the public hearing, could we verify the address is correct on the application?
Should be 1945 Northampton Street.
It says 1951 on the
Oh,
application.
1951. The church is 1951, the rectory is 19.
The letter from the building,
Can I have that? Thanks.
in the letter from the Damien Cody, it questions the address.
1945.
So,
Father Gentile, is there separate addresses for the rectory and the church?
I believe there is separate address for the rectory and the church. The rectory is 1945, the church is 1951.
So I think we just have to clarify which one the sign should come under. Or before we close the public hearing, ask that be
okay,
forwarded to us.
so the notice of decision that allowed for the increase in size of the sign references 1951 Northampton Street.
That's the planning board's decision.
That's what I'm referencing. Is that the correct address?
That's our understanding, yes.
Okay, so,
Yeah, good idea.
I'm sure it's almost
yes,
there.
all right. And I'm trying to put my hands on the actual application. It's not floating around, is it? Oh, no, that's notice of decision. What's this? Is the application with the picture of the sign floating around?
You have
Counselor
it.
Lisi, can I have
Oh,
that
I'm sorry.
application?
On the front review, it says 1951.
Thanks. So the planning board is referencing 1951. The cover of the application for the non-conforming structure names the owner as 1945 and the property address as 1945. So before we close the public hearing, should we clarify that the owner is at 1945, but the sign is at 1951?
That's correct, and I believe it's the same parcel which is identified in all documents.
Okay. So let the record show that we are amending the application to show 1951 Northampton Street for the location of the sign? Okay, so right under the wire before we close the public hearing. Good timing.
Motion to close public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to grant special permit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This committee will be recommending, were you in favor too, Council Lisi? 5-0 to the City Council on August 7th to approve this special permit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Motion to take up item number 3 and open the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 3, this is a continuation of the public hearing from the last meeting. It is for a zone change application of the Colvest Group LTD for 1575 Northampton Street, Holyoke, Mass., Map 105 Block 00, Parcel 061, from current zone R-1A to proposed zone BH. I received a communication, Marcos is here, I think he can confirm, today, this afternoon, I believe you sent that to me, that the public hearing on that zone change and temporary signs have been continued to your next August meeting of the planning board?
Correct, August 14th.
So the public hearing has been open, the public hearing remains open at the planning board at this time. It doesn't, we can continue in the public hearing if there's remaining questions that people want to address at this time. Okay, Councilor McGivern?
If I could, to the planning director, Marcus, for the purposes of the public hearing here, are there any issues that we should be aware of that the planning board is keeping their public hearing open for?
There was participation from the public at the meeting requesting that the planning board continue it at least for one occasion, with the understanding that there were folks who had concerns about, so two things, folks that had residents that had concerns about the project, but were on vacation and wanted the opportunity to participate in public comment. And the second was even for the people who were there, they were seeing it for the first time. This is I'm trying to make their representation for them. And that they would rather not react in the moment, but have the opportunity to provide comments, including in writing to the planning board. The planning board did not unanimously thought that it wasn't too much to ask to continue it to August 14th, as it would still allow it to be on track for a September approval, so should that happen.
And thank you, and just clarify, the planning board is doing the same thing as the Ordinance Committee, City Council is. It's a zoning petition change about use?
It's a zone change, correct.
Okay. So what project are we talking about? You don't have to answer that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I do want to note that I received 2 emails relative to the Lynch School rezoning. I forwarded it to the remainder of the committee because they just came to me. And they might have been copied to a couple other people, but I didn't think the rest of you had it. In the short version, one was a letter in support of the zone change, and one was a letter from a resident in opposition to the zone change. If you want to put more of them into the record than that, you each have the copy of the letters at this point. And Councilor Lisi.
Thanks. I don't think that there were any pending questions that we had for the Colvest Group, but some may come up based on public comment. And so since the planning board is continuing their hearing, I think that we should continue our hearing and wait for their recommendation. However, in the meantime, since there are members of the public here, I think we should just allow the public to speak and hear what they have to say.
Sure. If there are members of the public here who wish to speak on this zone change for what is commonly known as the Lynch School, you're welcome to come to the microphone, give your name and address, and give us any information you would like. If you feel we already have your information, it will stand. Sure.
Good evening. I'm Paola Ferrario. I live at 25 Morgan Street. I was at the planning board meeting last night. I'm here with several residents from Ward 7, and we are concerned about this change of zoning. At this moment, I will not go very much in depth, but seeing the presentation, Lynch School is going to be destroyed, taken down, in order to construct 2 units. We have not seen images of the unit. We only have seen images of the 2 rectangles that represents the building from above. The developer informed us that one will be a bank and the other would be able to host between 4 and 8 businesses. Our immediate concerns are, and I say this a little bit jokingly, but we feel that Ward 7 is a residential neighborhood. And I joked last night with the planning board saying that we like our luxury in Ward 7, but we have big lots, we have the historic houses, and we like our traffic to be manageable. It's not that we don't want to bring business to Holyoke. And all the people that are here have been extremely excited about the renovation of downtown. We feel that our ward doesn't need that new complex. We feel that we would like a renovation of Lynch. We are very concerned about asbestos abatement issue if this building comes down. But the most important issue is we don't have enough information about traffic. We don't know what these businesses will be, how many cars will be passing. This is it will affect the two intersections between Northampton Street and Hendon and Northampton Street and Dwight. And traffic is already slow then. Ms. Bacon, it's a weird deja vu because I was here a year ago talking about this. And one thing I wanted to tell you is that since that year, I got a real estate license. I'm a real estate agent now. And and I'm tired. No, I'm sorry. But since then, I've seen the value of the houses in Ward 7 and some other ward go up a full third. So houses that were selling for $275, they're now in the $350. I believe a lot of people that have bought those houses are because of some of the real estate firm in town and some of the Northampton real estate firm that say, well, for your price, come on down to Holyoke, and they bring them down on Route 5 and they come to the island. You know, I don't want people to get to Madison or Jefferson and be stuck in traffic because of the traffic. I think, this is really a case of if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I think Lynch is a fantastic building. And partially, it's really one of those buildings that I believe it's very well preserved. If we just keep it unused and preserved for 5 years, we will get the $30 million investor to do something with it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard?
Hi, my name is Sue Brulette. I'm at 179 Morgan Street. I am the author of the email that you received today. And I have communicated earlier with Councilor Lisi. She gave me some really helpful information. I'm a new resident to Holyoke. We retired and moved here very intentionally because we admired what we saw as the vision and the potential in Holyoke. The changes seemed a place that we wanted to live in, its diversity and its vibrant neighborhoods. So until recently, we've been really happy here. I'm very concerned that my neighborhood is going to have an expansion of a commercial properties that in an area where commercial properties fail. We know that area, it's blight, it's unattractive, it's not anything that we embrace in the Highlands. Part of what I loved about Holyoke was what I viewed as its thoughtful and positive vision about how it will repurpose its empty buildings. And that's evident in the canal area, obviously. And even a few weeks ago, when the building was moved from Yankee Peddler, again, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. This idea of repurposing important structures and respecting the history and the life of Holyoke. And then I see that in my neighborhood, a building, the Lynch building, which is a historic Holyoke building, is not being treated with that same vision and positive view of what Holyoke can be. An expanded commercial properties in an area that is proven to not really be very successful with commercial properties. Seems like you're throwing good money after bad. It's like if something doesn't work, let's do more of it. And I think to lose a piece of Holyoke history and be inconsistent with your vision is, just really disturbing for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? Anybody else on the council? Oh, hello.
Everybody, my name is Judith Kyler. I live on 19 Yale Street. I would like to second the speakers before me. I think the strip between these red lights or between these intersections is not very attractive already with all the strip malls there, and I don't think we need an additional one, more of the same. I think repurposing that building would be much more beneficial to the city as a whole, especially in regards to future development. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing anyone else who wishes to speak, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to September 11th. Council Lisi?
I do want to see if Colvest might answer a few questions. I mean, they may
sure.
not be prepared, and we could probably take them up at the next meeting
Sure.
anyhow. But I think a couple of things. Can you just state your name for the record as
Sure, it's Frank Colicino,
and you're the proprietor
of the Colvest Group.
Thank you. So have you presented traffic improvements to the area?
No.
So no traffic study has been done yet. It's contingent upon the sale.
Well, that would be, the
And zone
traffic
change.
study and all the other studies around would be part of site plan review. And so you wouldn't go in and do site plan review without a piece of property being zoned properly. And this is the expensive part of going through. You hire engineers, civil engineers, traffic engineers, and architects to come up with a design, study what's there, and then that's part of site plan review. If we don't get the zone changed, then it would be burdensome to a developer to go through that expense and not have a piece of property that's zoned.
And essentially, the sale is contingent upon the zone change, and therefore, any plans that you might make and projections for the types of traffic that a particular plan may generate is contingent upon the zone change as well.
That's correct.
Yeah. Additionally, I think that I've heard mention of Colvest having a $10 million budget for the project. Is that accurate, or is that not a true number?
It's probably in the $8 to $10 million range, yes.
Mm-hmm. And does that $8 to $10 million include the demolition and asbestos abatement that needs to occur at the site?
It does.
Okay. And then, just trying to think if there's one more thing here on my list. I think the other question I had would be for Marcos. Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to urge the committee to close the public hearing. It's gone on several sessions now. Whether it's Colvest or any other group, the city council through and the planning board will have various things, whether it's traffic or not. Doesn't that matter for anybody at all? Never mind that. For anybody to do anything there, we need a zone change. It's not going to be residential. All right. So make the decision. Let's get it over with. We're either going to change the zone, right? So something can happen with somebody there, and get this over with. It's time to move on.
Thank you. Councilor Bartley?
Well, Well, I mean, I'd rather hear from the public first. Does she want to speak again? You can,
Oh.
yeah, I'll defer to her, then I'll
Well, you have to come to the microphone, please.
defer to, yeah.
I'm actually gonna ask if you could keep the hearing open, because two people just left because it was too late for them, and I know that people are writing letters. So I think you may want that information to make an informed decision.
Thank you. Council
Bartley.
Bartley.
I have my
Well,
question
she's
for
waiting,
Marco,
I know,
Okay,
but
so,
it's
okay.
okay.
Well, I was going to address something to Frank, or
fine.
Mr. Point. And so I'm going to, just for the people here for the first time in the back and from more, well, Paula's been here several times, but for people the first time, well, welcome. We're happy to have you here, always happy to see new people come down to, the people's body. So there's that. I've been on this committee for 5 years. I've been on this board 6.5 years, but I've been on this issue with Lynch School since virtually the day I walked into City Council. We've had multiple go-arounds with the Lynch School. So I have probably sat through at least 30 hours of hearings on Lynch School. So any vote I take, I don't take it lightly. I know you're walking into this a little bit new, but I think except for Juan, I think the rest of us here have been many, many hours of Lynch School hearings. So I want you to consider that when you hear us take our votes. At some point we will. Also, Frank's company is proposing to purchase the Lynch School, but Frank's company currently owns across the street, which we effectively call the old school pay saver, but other things. But it's Brooks Pharmacy and that. Frank's company, Colvest, is a pretty large company with buildings throughout Greater Springfield, and you can take a look and see for yourselves what those buildings look like. Frank, while you're there, and so but before that, Frank, his company came into the committee that I chair for several public hearings as well on this very issue. So I've seen drawings and I've heard from Frank and I've heard from the company. And so the question I want to have for you, Frank, when we were at the DGR hearing, we spoke, I think a lot of us did, about Lynch School and how vital it is to the community. I didn't go to school at Lynch. I went to parochial school for 8th grade. But when I toured Lynch School with the mayor and others last winter, I was blown away by the beauty of the school, how if I'd been a student there, it would have been an honor to go to school at Lynch. I mean, the classrooms are gorgeous, the built-ins, it's amazing. The library, the auditorium, the building, though, Frank, I think we discussed, is loaded with asbestos. The building furnace is we'll just call it incredibly inefficient unit that's very costly. To heat not just the buildings, but the ancillary building, which is the basketball gym. I don't want to lose the gym, but when Frank was here some months ago, I think he talked about what pieces he would try to preserve that are historic. Again, we have not taken a vote, but I'm just saying a lot of these things had been discussed. So with that background, how the building's been sitting dormant since at least 2008. So 10 years, it's been a white whale in the middle of Holyoke, which, by the way, if that's Ward 7, that's news to me. I've always thought that was Ward 6. So, I mean, unless they redrew the lines when I didn't know it, which is kind of hard since we're on the body that draws the lines, that is not Ward 7. It's close, but it's not. It's Ward 6. Frank, that's just a little if you want just your Reader's Digest version of your vision for whatever you can preserve for Lynch School without committing. I guess you can't commit. I mean, but and then maybe if you want to talk about if you have any thoughts about what you can do across this, because you're going to basically on both sides of that corridor. I mean, your company, not entirely, but I mean, you're going to own a good 50% of it anyhow, if this came to fruition. So did you have a vision for that corridor? And
Sure.
could you share it if you do?
With regard to the asbestos that you talk about, the school is loaded with asbestos. The heating system that you mentioned, all of the pipes is asbestos wrapped. There's not only is there asbestos on the wall, in the walls, but on the floor you've got vinyl asbestos tile all over the place. To try to reuse that building today and to try to make it ADA compliant would be a tremendous expense. In tearing the building down, great care has to be taken to make sure that there's no asbestos fibers that float around. So part of that process is to hire an engineer to actually do air testing to make sure that it stays on site, and though that will be done throughout the demolition process. Once that's done, so what our vision is to take certain architectural components of the existing building and incorporate them in our new building. We did this in Springfield over on East Columbus Avenue, where there was a church there, and we knocked it down. It had the same issues with asbestos and had the same issues in terms of neglect. It also had been dormant for over 10 years. You had the elements coming in. There was a hole in the roof. Water was coming in. It withstood the winters, the summers. When a building is not used and it's not taken care of over a long period of time, it just deteriorates, and more so than you can imagine. So in the city of Springfield, over on East Columbus Avenue at the corner of Union Street, we took down a church. There was a lot of sentiment. There was there was a lot of emotional sentiment attached to the church. A lot of people got married there. They got baptized there. They went to, they had their catechism there, their confirmation. So you can imagine there was an attachment. And so what we did is take some elements of that church and incorporated them in the new design. The bishop at the time, we sat down with him and told him what we were planning to do. And he blessed it, so in a manner of speech. And it turned out well. We turned a negative into a positive. We put together some mementos for people who wanted them, and in the form of bricks, if people wanted to remember the church, we gave them bricks to the building. We also erected a memorial in our lobby, and it's there today, that we have the crest of the church that's there, and a history of St. Joseph's, just to remember what was there. So this is part of what we will do. But it's before you can get to the architecture and to designing the building, we need to get through the zone change process, because doing the architecture, it's a long process, and it's an expensive process. And so I hope I answered your question.
Please.
Councilor Anderson Burgos.
Yes. So, thank you for that. So I'm listening to everyone speak, and there's part of me, I grew up, born and raised in Holyoke, and part of me would love to keep Lynch as it is and use it for, I don't know, like after school events and stuff like that. Would love it. And what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of asbestos and dangerous elements, right, within this property.
Correct.
And I think what would be appropriate, I'm not sure if you reached out to the general area, like maybe include them into this process, like you were mentioning earlier, that you had spoke to the bishop and he blessed it. And that's a process, right? You included these people in the community and they felt a part of it. So maybe that's what you should do, is reach out to these people in the general area and come together so that maybe that you can come to a conclusion of what you would like to see there. Not to mention, yes, this intersects my ward. So for me, and at this point, you know what, it's not even about ward, it's about safety. So there is a lot of traffic that goes there. So what we need to do is make sure that we carefully think about how we're going to direct traffic, because that can get congested during the time.
Sure, and that's why, part of the site plan approval process would be a traffic engineer to come in and study what the traffic is, and then design something that's going to work. So that's again, that's all handled through the site plan review process.
My suggestion would be to include these people, these residents, as part of the process. I think they not would only appreciate it, but it would be important to them, I would think. Just my suggestion.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yep, thank you. Just so everybody knows here, I'm a state licensed asbestos inspector. So I know what I'm talking about here. Whether it's save this building, which we've talked about, rehab this building, use it for something else, demo this building, that problem's going to get addressed. Nothing's going to happen, nothing, unless we do something about the zoning. That's what's before us, not the issues about asbestos, not the issues about traffic. All that stuff gets addressed in the site planning approval. The whole council gets several more bites at this apple, but we've got a developer after 10 years now willing to step forward, and we're continuing these hearings ad nauseum. All right? Let's get to the point. No matter who it is, no matter what we do with this building, we got to get on with the zoning process. Nobody's going to move forward. Nobody's going to invest any more money or continue any other planning until we get over this one hurdle. There's plenty of other times to address all of this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yeah, so, and that's fine.
Through the chair.
Right, sorry. So, we still have the residents, and they have feelings, and they need to be acknowledged. I understand a business is coming in, and I appreciate that and respect that. But at the same time, these people live right next door to where we're going to demolish a building that's historic. So we have to be thoughtful in this process, and that is important to me, and I'm pretty sure to a lot of the residents who are tuning in.
Thank you. That's all right. Councilor Lisi?
Thank you. If I may ask Marcos a few questions. Mr. Marrero?
Could you?
So I just want to, so I think Councilor Bartley hit the nail on the head that this building's been vacant for about 10 years. It must have been 5 years ago when the previous Rite Aid proposal came before us, and I think it was vacant for 5 years before even that proposal came to the city. But does 10 years sound like the right number of years that this parcel's been vacant?
Yes, I believe it was 2008, since it's been vacant in 2011, I think it was, before my time, so I may have the years mixed up. There's at least one RFP done in 2011. There may have been another one previous to that, I'm not entirely sure. At least the last one in 2011 got 0 responses, and it was for a reuse of the building. I think we've issued 3 RFPs at this point. I kind of lose count. And in 2012, there was a reuse proposal for a charter school that was denied. 2014 was about the time that there was another commercial development for a pharmacy. It was for a CVS.
CVS, is it?
The developer was not able to secure the permitting process and therefore closed. And then we went out to RFP again. I think that's when we did 2 RFPs, and this is the outcome of that one.
And based on the experience of the planning department, it's my understanding that you also built into the present RFP certain restrictions on how that property can be used. Is that correct?
Yes, we took the public perception and feedback that we had heard from political leadership in the city around uses that people felt were particularly either noxious or undesired in that area, that vicinity, which were pharmacies and auto-related uses. So in the request for proposals, it was made clear that no proposal that included that would be considered, and that would go into the sale of the property as a deed restriction. So no business along those lines could go on that site.
And I know that the city is in the process of, we want to build 2 new schools, but has there been any work done to explore the reuse of this property as a school? And do we have any cost estimates for what that would look like?
Sure. So one of the new points of information that we have today that we did not have in 2014 when this was a hot topic issue, some people consider that it should still be saved as a school. Since 2014, there has been a process to advance those aspirations to have a school. The Massachusetts School Board Authority provided a study on comparison of sites of where a school could be provided, and Lynch School was one of them. The ballpark estimate for having a school there would be over $20 million, and it was a clear outlier in any of the estimates at the time. It was an early conceptual estimate, but it was an outlier.
Great. And I'm going to assume, because I haven't seen the full report, that the MSBA, Massachusetts State Board Authority, estimate was in the ballpark of over 20,000, because no matter if there's going to be a demolition, reuse, or repurpose, there needs to be asbestos abatement in any case.
Yes, the asbestos abatement is different, and I know we've addressed asbestos in particularly when we were talking about a pharmacy. So I made this point last night in the planning board, so if you'll bear with me. A big part of the asbestos at the site is in the outer wall between the 2 layers. It is part of the material that keeps humidity out of the building. So particularly when you're talking about demolition, it becomes a cost problem, which just increases the cost of any project that will demolish it. And so we've talked about this particularly in the context of a sale and what the sale price would be to the city. Because the higher the price to have a project that includes demolition, it means that a developer would naturally need to have a tenant that could pay a rate that covers their capital expenses. That's why things like pharmacies will pay much more. But developers that are avoiding to do a pharmacy, which the city has intended or the public has expressed opposition to, would have to offer less money. If you rehab the building, you don't have to deal with the asbestos on the outer side, but certainly as the developer has said, there's asbestos present in many places. The boiler it's old. You probably have to cut a hole through something to take it out. It's as big as a submarine. So you'd have to, that asbestos you would have to take care of. You'd have to do the HVAC, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. If you're dividing up the property for tenancy, you have to deal with that. New ADA compliance. The elevator is not in service, or at least it needs significant upgrades. So those are the cost centers when you're going to rehab it. It's not necessarily all the asbestos. There's plenty of asbestos to go around. But when you demo it, you don't have to do all the upgrades, but then you have to deal with the asbestos.
Mm-hmm. I see. That's all for what I have for Marcos. Thank you.
Councilor McGivern?
Marcus, while you're at the mic, Colvest was before us last year. And what was the agreed upon price for the property?
$250? Yes, $250,000.
And that was presented through the mayor.
Correct.
To City Council for approval before, and of course contingent to a zone change itself.
Correct.
And during that time, did we address the issues of the building? Did we take a tour of the building?
There was a tour as part of the request for proposals process.
Besides asbestos, is there a mold issue on the southern wall?
I don't remember, to be honest.
There is. And I'd just like to remind the committee, and I appreciate the comments of the residents this evening, and I agree with Council Roman. We can work with them on issues, especially on a traffic issue, because when Colvest was originally before us, I asked a lot of questions about traffic. And I was dismayed that even a preliminary study has not been done. And we will take another shot at traffic when the special permits for drive-throughs and the special permits for other things come before us. And the more important, the planning board will have a shot during the site plan review on traffic. And I believe a good developer, will adhere to what the city needs are in terms of traffic itself. They have a purchase and sale. The mayor put this developer in front of us with a price that we agreed to as a city council. The building issues are beyond us. Right now, it's use. This land is, although it's residential 1A, for the most part, this land has always been used commercially. It's the end of Ward 6. I appreciate and will always fight for residential neighborhoods. Ward 7 is one of our good residential neighborhoods. But this is a commercial area that has always been a commercial area for decades within the city of Holyoke. We should be talking about use, not about the building, but about use. I've not heard of a developer that wants to demolish a building with asbestos, mold, 10 years vacant, and do so because of their development. They believe and have so much faith in it. Most developers come to us and want us to demolish the building, which is a cost that, I remind everyone, can be very high. And if this building stays vacant much longer, there's a good chance that we'll end up demolishing it if it reverts back to city ownership. It's time to address use. It's time to move forward. We'll have another shot at the apple for traffic. We'll have another shot at the apple for other issues down the road, and then we should work with the residents.
If I could address just one small thing in terms of traffic and use, not traffic as in the specific tenancy, but there seems to be a conception out there that merely because the use would be changed to business, the traffic would be worse. Certainly we would expect there to be more traffic to the site than there is now because there is no occupancy. But the notion that a school, as it was before, or even if it would be reactivated as a school under the current zoning, that would have less traffic, I think is misguided. A school will provide traffic with long queues of drop-offs at the peak times of travel, which is the worst time to have traffic at that intersection, in the morning and in the afternoon. So just have that in mind as you consider uses of business versus keeping it as it is for something like a school.
Oh, Councilor McGivern.
We were debating traffic, but I'll just remind our good planning director, the traffic light question is the egress from the property and two archaic lights at the intersections of Dwight and Route 5 and the Hampden and Route 5. That's what needs to be addressed, not the amount of traffic. The amount of traffic is what we need. We want people coming and spending money and participating in good business. That's why these businesses are successful. But we have to get the traffic to and from both those intersections.
Thank you. Marcos, while you're there, can you just remind me of the schedule of the planning board relative to this application?
They've continued the public hearing to August 14th.
August 14th?
I mean, they can't guarantee it's going to close that day, but it seemed informally when they were talking about it, they said that they don't see a reason to drag it on much longer after that.
All right.
That's the sense that I got from the board.
I appreciate that. I'm just trying to look at the timetable and the schedule relative to what information we could anticipate coming in. So far, what I've heard is a desire to make sure that the folks from the public, if they had not been heard, have an opportunity to be heard on the 14th. So,
Mr. Tallman.
Councilor Tallman.
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Marcus, for coming down today. And I've been a resident in Holyoke all my life, and I grew up right in that neighborhood, and I understand the traffic, the area. Actually, I went to John J. Lynch Junior High for 2 years, and had a great time there. Mr. Bartley, I missed a lot. I missed a lot in that school. It was a lot of good memories. And when Colvest came in, and I've been on the committee for development and government relations, we had a great talk and what do we want to do there, And Marcos, you brought up to me about the traffic. And when there was a school there, when it was Lynch School there was a lot of traffic. people queuing up, cars pulling in. I mean, it was several years ago, but I can remember the kids getting out of school, the buses pulling up there, and with the business in there, you're going to have traffic, but a lot of the traffic is coming in. And I do respect the residents that want to speak. I think this is okay for this to be continued, and to give them an opportunity to speak, to send letters in. But this building's been vacant a long time, and we've had several shots of people trying to come in here and nothing happening. I just talked to a business leader in this community right before this meeting for about 15 minutes, and he was at the planning board meeting and wanted to know what was going on with the development of this property. I feel it's important that Holyoke is trying to be friendly, business friendly. We talk about being business friendly. We need to hear from the residents, but we need to make our city, available to businesses that come in and to grow in Holyoke. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the residents any comments that people have. But I also got to realize that this building's been vacant a long time, and we need business in the community to grow our tax base. And and with this company, Colvest, coming in with the several properties that they've done through the community, I think it's important opportunity for Holyoke in this juncture of our history to take that property and to do something with it and develop it for years to come. They have to come before the site plan review, the planning board, the traffic, everything, and that's the least that they, the main thing is getting it to the council, giving discussion of what we feel this zone change is needed for them to develop this property and to move forward. We all know that we need business. We lost a lot of tax dollars over the years with businesses leaving. We need to start saying to ourselves, open our doors to Holyoke and have business come in. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
I'm just going to let Councilor Bartley, I see you.
Well, I think, just in light of what the planning board, I think we need the recommendation before we take a vote. So so I'm just looking at the count. So I don't really see the purpose of closing a public hearing tonight, and as much as I probably would tend to vote for it, but because you look at our calendar, the next time that this committee is going to meet is September 11th. So we can't, our hands are tied. Our hands are pretty well tied by the planning board, I think. So
Yes, we can keep the public hearing open so that if people want to address us on the 11th, they can.
I think
we can
that
also receive, if the planning board makes a recommendation, we can receive that recommendation if the hearing is open or closed, as far as that goes. But in the interest of hearing from people in the public, then September 11th will be the next time that we would be meeting.
Yeah, I think we've heard from everybody tonight, and just in the interest of kind of moving the agenda, I want a motion. I'm going to motion to continue this to September 11th.
Okay, I'm going to leave that motion for the moment. I want to recognize the member from the public.
Okay.
Since we are still in the public hearing.
I need to restate my...
You can pull it down. Yeah.
I was just wondering if you have any idea how many years the mills were empty before they were repurposed. I know that buildings deteriorate, but 8 years relative to how many years that the mills sat empty. And look at them now. The second comment I have, a comment that I have is that I'm absolutely new to this. You have all the knowledge and experience, and I'm just learning. However, when Councilor Bartley was speaking, I don't know who Frank is. And I think it's inconsistent with the formality of this government body that I respect. And I think that if we're going to use Councilor Bartley formal names, that should be consistent and not be chummy, because it's an unsettling message to me, the new person. The last thing I'm asking is that with good conscience, you, as elected representatives, make sure that the city of Holyoke is consistent with its thoughtful, positive vision for every part of the city. Don't pick winners and losers. And it feels a little bit like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to renew my motion.
On the
Second.
motion to continue the public
public
hearing
hearing.
till September 11th at
No, I just want to second it.
6:30. All in favor?
Aye. Motion to take up item number 5 and open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5, a special permit application from Holyoke Gardens LLC for a marijuana manufacturing establishment, MME, at 5 Appleton Street.
Second. Well,
We
did.
already
We
did
we
that. It's a continued public hearing, so, yeah.
Pavlov dog here. Pavlov dog's just say motion, I'll say second.
Well, we've had so many public hearings. It's understandable. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is David Caputo of 903 Dwight Street in Holyoke.
Yes, and we have an updated letter dated July 12th.
Okay.
And,
I did submit all those questions to Jeff.
yes, and at the end of the last hearing, you had turned those in.
Yes. We turned them in as soon as we got out of the hearing.
Right,
Yes.
so that's where we left off.
Right, yes.
That you had submitted the answers to all of the questions
Yes.
of the planning department.
Mhm.
And I see we have our planning department representative here. So if we could, if you don't mind.
Oh, please.
If I just can ask Marcos to let us know, I know we did receive all the answers to the 2 pages of questions at the end of the last hearing relative to Holyoke Gardens. And so I just wanted to confirm that, from my understanding, the questions had been answered for
I honestly, Kate,
Planning
I know
department?
we got responses Thursday afternoon. I have not been able to review them.
Okay.
We're in the middle of the review of the questions, but
Well,
unfortunately,
are.
I don't have anything for you.
Okay, so you have them, so then maybe what you would like to do is run through those for us. I think that might be helpful to the committee because we have so many.
Madam Chair.
Speaking to the mic.
Well, hang on. Counselor Lisi?
So I'm going to say that because the planning department outlines a number of questions, I understand that Holyoke Gardens has submitted a response, but now the planning department is reviewing that response. And so to go through their responses, only to go through them again with additional technical feedback seems really like it's not going to be the interest of our time at this point. And so if we had those responses as well as the feedback, the technical feedback from the planning department, I would say, yes, let's go through them and dig into them
Okay,
tonight. But I
thank you.
don't see us able to do that.
Thank you. So Marcos, I just want to be sure that, because there are so many different applications flying around, that I don't have a response. So from your perspective, you're in
response from them?
process at this point still of reviewing that for this particular application?
That's correct. We haven't submitted
Okay.
an update as to,
Okay.
sometimes when a response comes in, we say noted or there are
Right.
no further questions.
Right.
I mean, in fairness, it's your show, you asked
Well, right,
whether.
but I mean,
if you're interested in us doing the technical review, we haven't completed the letter as an
Yeah.
update, which we would normally do.
Yeah, and we definitely are interested in hearing the feedback and getting the answers to the letter. And I know folks, want things to move along, but there have been a lot of applications. It's sort of an alphabet soup of marijuana applications these days. But it looks like if you've answered all of these, at our next meeting, we should be able to address most of the matters that are open. So,
In a motion
Is
that we
that what-
continue to,
we
yeah,
should,
we should.
because we've let
Thank
everybody
you, yeah.
else speak
So we'll allow the
relative to
public
the
to
public.
speak. Mhm.
So if the applicant would like to speak, and then we'll open the microphone to any members of the public who wish to speak.
Well, we
You have the floor.
We're just trying to get a cultivation license from the state and a special permit from the city so we can set up a cultivation operation, which we hope to be providing a lot of high-quality, good-paying jobs and donating a lot of money every year to the Holyoke General Fund, and being good corporate citizens and involving ourselves in various organizations of philanthropy around the city and in other ways trying to do our best to advance the city's agenda.
Thank you. Are there members of the public who wish to approach the microphone, give your name and address, and any comments you have relative to this application?
Hi there, I'm Morris Partee, 127 St. Colby Drive, and I just want to express my support for this endeavor. As you're saying, there's an alphabet soup of applicants, but I want to state that this particular company is the one company which really is Holyoke started and Holyoke grown, so to speak. You have other applicants who are coming from out of state, but this endeavor in particular, I want to give thanks to Dave for starting the process right here in Holyoke, getting Holyoke investors. So as an investor in the organization, I hope that it moves through the city as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard at this time? There will be further opportunity. I'm hearing from planning. They should have feedback for us, I'm guessing, by our next meeting, which will be September 11th. Did you wish to speak, Councilor Roman?
Yes, thank you. Dave, if I could just ask you a question really quick, if I may, through the chairwoman. You heard from my colleague tonight, and we did it with RISE. I really applaud and support Councilor Bartley on those amendments and conditions. I just want to ask you for the record, are you agreeable to those same conditions to this special permit that were passed for RISE? Because I think that should be, like my colleague was saying, fair across the board. I like them, and I think they should be for all of them. So I just wanted to be able to see if you'd be willing. I'm going to ask every company that comes before us tonight, are you willing to accept those conditions?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, then. Not seeing anyone.
Motion to continue.
So this public hearing is continued to September 11th at 6:30. The planning, well, wait a minute, let me think about this. Hang on a second, I'm just thinking out loud a little bit. We won't be meeting again till September 11th. We have to hear back from the planning department still. It's not contingent on any other public hearing. We're just waiting to get through the information.
I'm disappointed, but I'll live through it.
All right.
I'm just sad that it can't be considered by the full council on the 7th.
Just gotta follow the law.
All right.
Well,
Not complaining, I'm sad.
yeah, well, we added in this meeting, but it was kind of a tight schedule. Usually when information is received and then it's submitted back, there's a little bit longer of a turnaround, just as a matter of process. So the motion is to continue to September 11th at 6:30. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 6 off the table.
Yes, we did.
Hang on a second.
Motion to take up item number 6 and open the public hearing, reopen the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 6, public hearing for the petition by George Tiersay of Gloversville, New York. to
That's 7, Madam Chairwoman. 6 is
wait,
Candace
I
provision.
grabbed my other agenda, sorry. Public hearing for petition of Canna Provisions, Inc. for a special permit for recreational marijuana dispensary at 380 Rear Dwight Street. And that public hearing was closed. So what is before us now is to look at conditions that we may wish.
Motion to approve the conditions as presented by Councilor Bartley.
Yes. that's one amendment. So, are people in favor of those amendments?
Aye, yeah.
The same three amendments? Oh, so we have to take everything one at a time then. So,
It's okay.
and because this is for a dispensary as opposed to manufacturing, we're looking at things like hours and a number of other different considerations for this one that we had discussed in comparison to strictly manufacturing. So, item 1, and Crystal, these are the same in terms of the language from the manufacturing one, that the owner would not change their corporate status so that they would be paying property taxes for the duration of the special permit to the extent allowable by local, state, and federal law. So I need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
And 1 no? So 4-1, that amendment passes. The second amendment is that a minimum of 30% of Holyoke residents be given, that there's a preference relative to hiring Holyoke residents for the non-security positions for the employees under the special permit.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 3, that preference be given to the security personnel, that they be retired Holyoke police officers or retired officers from another department but living in Holyoke.
So moved.
No, so 4-1. On the third amendment, in our public hearing, we had some discussion about other various conditions. One is, and we understand that it is state law that there cannot be consumption on site, yet we wish to state it as a condition that there not be consumption on site. State law may change, but this is a local
Second.
matter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so 4-1, relative to no consumption on site. No deliveries of retail marijuana, medical, or recreational. We know it's law right now that no deliveries can be made
From
the dispensary.
Not to.
Individual home deliveries to people.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
I just want, under discussion, I know we just voted for it, but I just want to just raise the point, like, so if the state law changes, are we really going to be holding back businesses from doing these things? I mean.
There would have to be an amendment to the special permit.
Sure, I understand that, but that's just the reason why I'm voting the way that I am. It just seems like we
Which
don't
is
want to
fine,
hold people.
but Councilor Roman.
Through the chair in the discussion, I think that we should have them come back, only because of similar, whatever industry, traffic studies, impact. I think it's a good thing, even if the state law changes, for us to just have it as a condition for anyone in any industry to come back to just have those discussions. And if, it changes, we can easily remove it for all of them as a condition if they come back in one swoop. But I still would want to know, especially in these areas and communities, how many delivery drivers are going to be in and out? Is the security plan going to change? There's all these slew of questions.
There would be a whole host of
questions,
security
yes.
issues that would come to bear with home delivery of drugs, in my view. Councilor Bartley.
I'm sorry, thank you. I think, and we've said it before, but it bears repeating, that the general court has said that, yes, we're passing the overarching legislation, but we're leaving this to the local community to craft its own rules and regulations. So there's that. And second of all, if there is a state law, yes, generally that supersedes, with the exception that a local ordinance, if it's more restrictive, that would supersede a state law. So I think we have, plus all the arguments that Councilor Roman earlier raised, and if I just may, Madam Chair, point of order, I'm sorry if I was sounding chummy earlier. I didn't mean to, I forgot Mr. Colaccino's last name, so that was, but I looked at my notes and I remembered it. So I didn't mean to sound chummy to the public. I mean, so I didn't have a chance to address that to the constituent, but thank you.
Okay, so continuing on, hours for retail, we had discussed in the public hearings, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is my notation.
Is that 7 days a week?
Well,
in my notes, I mean, this is discussion and debate. I mean, this is just things I noted down in the public hearing. These are not, you know. Councilor McGivern wishes to.
Just, if I could real quick, because this is the way I'll vote on this amendment on the floor. For a couple reasons. I have no problem with hours of operation. This special permit is, I know we're issuing it as a local body, but it is actually granted by the state. And hours of operations have already been addressed in terms of our local ordinance, and I believe on the state level, if it hasn't been, it's going to be addressed. I think I just want, the advice I'm giving is that we are consistent and we keep one set of hours of operations to make sure that we maintain a level playing field. Example, package stores have an open time and a closing time. They don't have to be open for that entire time, but they're allowed to. Most of the time, the first time I sat in this seat, I won't tell you what year, Councilor Roman, but you know, I'm not sure if you were born. I was issued served a suit, and the city council was being served on a special permit that limited, believe it or not, gas station self-serve, and we only allowed 2 in the city of Holyoke. And back then, the argument was someone else wanted a 3rd one, and then the city told them they couldn't have it because 2 are only allowed. We were told immediately by our law department, we're not going to win this because it's not a level playing field, and we had no reasons not to allow, and now it's the opposite. But at that time, it wasn't the norm to pump your own gas. So I'm just suggesting that we keep one set of hours of open and operation unless during the public hearing, some determination is made that there's a reason to have a place closed at a certain time for a specific reason.
So just for information for the committee's consideration, in the feedback at the various meetings that we've had, I had noted down under possible conditions, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I had 7 days. So I don't know what the pleasure of the committee is in that regard. Councilor Roman?
For me, just because, again, thinking of what Councilor McGivern was saying, if we even the playing field, most package stores and liquor stores have to close by 5 p.m. on Sundays usually in this area. So I would just think, just for Sunday, I think 8 to 8, Monday through Saturday is fine. But again, similar to Councilor McGivern, I think we make it fair across the board.
Okay.
So that way every, retail space has the same hour. So we're not setting one for the other unless, again, extenuating circumstances. But if package stores have to close early on Sunday, I think so should
So would it be 8 to 5 on Sunday?
my recommendation, again, that we can debate. I'm up to.
Oh, no, I'm just clarifying.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Bartley?
So I think we discussed this even not having Sunday hours, but I would really rather defer to the ward councilors. I wish the Ward 1 council were here. I know this is Ward 2, but where this business is, but oh, okay, then I really wish the Ward 1 council were here, but since Nelson is here, I'm going to defer to his suggestion if you think that makes sense, and I'll when it comes time for your motion, I'll second it.
Okay, so is the motion 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sundays? I mean, it can be different. It's just.
I'm just thinking because this is going to be the standard that we set for the rest as well. So it's just like I don't want to.
What are the package stores?
The package store on Main Street, I know, and a few others are 5 p.m. on Sundays, but Councilor Lisi, I think, can.
Councilor Lisi?
So I just want to say, I think that the point that Councilor McGivern was making is that all package stores has the same business hours. Not that we should necessarily make the.
No, but it's a good frame of reference.
It's actually not, because you don't actually drink alcohol at the package store. It's about the. Oh, it's the same thing, sorry.
Yeah, you're not going to be doing the pot there either. But, so we're Councilor Bartley.
Just on Bowling Street,
That's a different one.
Well, I know it's a different one, but let's just, I know that's not one, the order right now, but let's think about that just in context. I mean, that is really close to a residential neighborhood. And so I would want you to, if we're gonna make the hours, 8 to 8 Monday through Saturday, I mean, what hours do you want to have on Sunday? And besides, on top of that, package stores were closed in the Commonwealth on Sundays for decades until they, and then the hours were adjusted even after they had one set hours, then they changed the hours as well. So
So I'll make a motion, actually, to make it fair across the board. So Monday through Friday, 8 to 8, and then Saturday and Sunday, 8 to 5. That's my motion.
Saturday and Sunday?
I'll second that.
Saturday and Sunday.
I think.
Any
Public
other
hearing's closed.
discussion?
Public hearing's closed.
Public hearing's closed.
Well, the public hearing is closed. We're not entertaining information. We can vote, as we have many times before, to suspend rules if somebody wants to be heard on a point of. Counselor Anderson Burgos.
So,
close the public hearing. I'll say I can suspend rules, but that's okay. Go ahead, sorry.
My question is, they're not going to be selling, right? They're just producing, right?
No, this is a dispensary.
Dispensary, oh.
This is a dispensary.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that before I made any.
Yeah, yeah. Marcos, you wanted to weigh in?
We closed the public hearing, Madam Chair.
Oh, you're right.
I mean, I'm looking to comment as staff, just like the law department did, but.
We closed the.
Staff can comment anytime. This is city staff.
We're deciding to add the conditions at this point.
Staff
We're
can-
not taking in new
Staff can comment at
information.
any time when the public hearing's open, because we accept them. When we close the public hearing, that's it.
Relative to conditions? Marcos.
So I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm trying to advise, because you're following a special permit process governed by Mass General Laws 40A. It's a land use process. You had a public hearing. I mentioned this at the public hearing as well. You're going to set conditions that have to do with the land use. Unless I missed something, there was nothing during the hearing that spoke to the problems of an operation being open in what is already governed by the time of use, which is 8 to 8 all throughout. So I would just caution the board of creating an arbitrary and capricious standard of a time of closing when there has been no information presented that makes closing earlier or at any particular time. What happens at 5:05 that is being avoided by closing at 5? Why not close at 3 o'clock? Why not at 8 p.m.? There's no real reason behind it. So I would caution the board, just like any special permit authority, I would tell this to the planning board as well, that there needs to be a finding and there needs to be a fact behind the finding. I was present at the public hearing. I did not hear of any issue around operations between 5 o'clock or 8 p.m. or at any other time that would create a problem. So I would just caution the board around that.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Well, I'm going to say this. I have notes written down relative to hours of operation that came directly from the public hearing, so I disagree. Councilor Rome.
Yes, so just to clarify for the staff of the city, downtown Main Street, for infrastructure purpose, is not well lit, and this came directly from the neighborhood meetings in the community, saying that after it gets dark on Main Street, and they were specifically thinking of winter time, just like package stores, the public was concerned. That's feedback that we got directly from the public that was shared with this body. That wasn't a capricious or arbitrary thing. That came directly from hearing from the constituents, aside from the number one thing we always hear about is traffic and safety. They did bring up hours of operation specifically for Sundays and nights and evenings. And unless we as a city are miraculously going to invest in new lighting on Main Street, we don't have funding for that. The public concern that came out of all that, from all the way down in Springdale with that really poor lit factory industrial park area all the way down Main Street, where even from Nueva to the next corner store where the package store is, it's so dark, you can't see. So unless private business owners are going to be lighting up their buildings, the public had concerns that individuals, after purchasing, were going to go out and consume, similar to the package stores. That was feedback that came from the public, so it wasn't out of thin air. I second the motion of the chair. That came from the public.
But not at the public hearing. And lighting, it gets dark every night.
Okay.
That's my
Okay,
point.
we're
It
not
gets
having
dark-
a debate here, thank you. Through the chair, and that's it. Counselor McGivern.
Just on, if I heard the amendment correct, did you say 8 to 5 on Saturday? Just Sunday? No, I'm just asking.
We're having discussion. His motion was 8 to 8, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, Saturday and Sunday, and we're
Okay,
under
then I'd like to
discussion.
speak about Saturday. I think the difference between Saturday and Sunday is night and day. Saturday is, this business needs Saturday night, as it needs Friday night. This industry is recreational, this industry is, the weekend is when people like to relax, when people like to go out to dinner, like to go out for a drink, and some people, I guess, will like to go out to use recreational marijuana. So if we're gonna do this across the board on Saturday, 8 to 5, we're gonna be sending a message to people about not opening a dispensary in the city of Holyoke, about doing it somewhere else. And if you look at the way the state law is, the money we're gonna get from this industry itself is dispensaries. We're getting some good money from manufacturing, but the real money is in dispensaries.
So motion to amend to 8 to 8, Monday through Saturday, Sunday 8 to 5.
Second. But I'm going to briefly recognize.
Yeah. Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, I just want, this is just to the chair. And I guess I'm going to want to see the site on public hearings. I mean, we're hearing this stuff. I mean, I haven't had a public hearing. Once we close a public hearing, I've been through more than one. I've never once had any feedback ever post the closing of public hearing from anybody. On any public hearing, which is what we already closed the public hearing on a special permit. Second of all, when I hear from a gentleman I respect, so know that we were getting into advocacy on that point. It wasn't. It was advocacy, and I've already said 5 times in this thing. So 9.3.3. Read the language. You know it very well. It's incredibly broad. It allows this body to grant reasonable conditions, safeguards, or limitations on time or use. I mean, that is unbelievably clear, black and white language. I mean, go get a copy if you don't believe me. It's in the city ordinance. So 9.3.3, we can do that. But, I heard the guffaw from the gallery, and then all of a sudden we get the director of planning get up when it was an 8 to 8,
Madam Chair, can you just point of order, please? You guys are trying to deal with a special permit. Can we focus?
I am focused.
We can focus.
Yeah, this is on the issue, and wow, to hear that from the law department, who's not even a member of this body, to speak with you, not recognized, that's unbelievable. So, too bad. That is what happened. I heard a guffaw from the audience, then I heard the director stand up and get recognized, and we reopen a public hearing, Madam Chair, which I need to have a sight on that, because I don't think that's accurate. So
Counselor Bartley, to your point, I take your point, and I would agree that the public hearing is closed, and the debate that we're having relative to the conditions should be within the committee, as we did with the other special permit that we have been hearing.
Well, and if I may, Madam Chair, I saw the floor. So I saw the floor. So it was going to come back around anyhow. So I think Nelson made a fine motion. I seconded it, but we hadn't voted on it. It was a lousy motion. I mean, we were just talking about it, and and it was a good motion. But there's just one motion out of many motions we make, and then we amended it. I mean, for heaven's sakes.
Well, good.
I
take your point.
Well,
I believe you're correct.
Well, I guess just we go through this, the public body. Councilor McGivern has been through these more than all of us, but these are debates we have all the time. I'm sorry, it doesn't go totally linear from A to Z. It doesn't work that way. But That's all works here. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the motion before us on the amendment that the hours for retail would be 8 to 8, Monday through Saturday, and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sundays. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That amendment carries 5-0. So we have the initial 3. We have added 1, 2, 3 more. Are there any other conditions that,
Motion
Well,
to.
Madam, was this was the one that had the provision for 2 signages, correct, versus 1? Is this the applicant that had that?
Say that again, Nelson?
Wasn't this the application because there was like the 2 signages compared to just the 1? Am I correct in that?
There's one on the first building coming in,
there's
and then
2
there's one on
buildings?
the actual building that they're occupying.
Okay. Do we ever get clarification with that counted? Because that was a question we had.
That counted for
Because the
what?
regulation said you could only have 1 signage on the prop. Like, you know, I was just asking, just wanted to clarify. I understand it's on the same parcel, so what's to stop the next? I'm just asking, because what's to stop the next applicant who in, you know, separate structure in the front of their building has a standout sign, and I'm just asking, I just want to know if that's the case.
I remember there
Right?
being discussion on it.
I'm just-
I don't remember it being,
Don't shoot me.
Oh, back. Man,
jeez.
I don't know.
I want to make it.
I'm just looking to see if it was in the July 17th question and answers. We were mostly focused on parking.
I'm fine with moving on, Madam Chair. I just wanted to
And,
clarify.
I mean, you could make a general condition that any signage is in compliance
Yeah.
with the sign
Yeah,
ordinance.
so moved, yeah.
You want to
Just-
do that?
Yeah, just so
That'll
moved.
take care of it.
There you go.
How's that?
Nice and easy.
Save me.
So moved. Is there a second?
Okay, so we're adding a condition that signage is in compliance with the city ordinances. You got that, Crystal? So, okay, Ryan, do you have that? Thank you.
Oh, have fun playing this tape.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve the special
Wait,
permit
I'm
as,
gonna make
oh, sorry.
one more
Counselor Lisi?
condition. At the last meeting that we had, there was some talk that paintings, like directional paintings, were going to be made to the parking lot.
Yes.
And I'd like to put that in there, that,
Okay.
that directional paintings be made to facilitate the flow of traffic on the parking lot.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Motion to approve the special permit as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So this special permit will be recommended to the city council on August 7th.
Motion to take up item number 7. Was that public hearing closed too, or no?
That public
was.
hearing had already been
Closed.
closed.
So it's motion to take up item number 7.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7, public hearing for petition of George Tierce of Gloversville, New York, to operate an RMRE and MMD for medical and recreational marijuana purposes at 630 Bolio Street, Holyoke, Mass.
Motion to take up, go down the list of the first 3 like we did for the other.
Okay.
Individually?
Hang on, I got my list here.
You could take them up as a no, you
No,
can't.
because the votes aren't the same. 1, that the owner will not change for-profit status and will continue to pay property taxes for the duration of the special permit to the extent permitted by local, state, and federal law.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
1 opposed? 4-1 on that amendment. Item 2, that a minimum of 30% Holyoke residents be given preference for non-security employment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 3, that preference be given to the security person, that they be a retired Holyoke Police Department officer and/or retiree of another department living in the city of Holyoke.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. The hours of operation for, are they dispensing as well?
Yes,
They're cultivating and
right?
dispensing?
Yes.
So that the hours of operation be consistent with the previous special permit?
So hours of operation then would be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You voting, Counselor Lisi?
Hours.
Hours?
Same hours,
Yep.
yes.
What are the other ones we have?
That there be no consumption on site?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That there be no home deliveries or off-site
So moved.
deliveries?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We already did the hours.
The direct,
That, do you want to do the same thing for signage?
Just to be
Just
fair.
to
Yep,
be consistent?
yep.
I mean, I don't think
So
you have
moved.
to. So that the signage be in compliance with our ordinances, and we didn't have the issue with directional painting.
Yep.
So,
motion to approve the special permit as amended?
Second. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to,
So that's 4-0, Counselor Lisi being out of the
Leave it on
room?
the table because we don't have anything from the planning board on that. So-
On what?
item number 8.
On 8,
Counselor Lisi, did you want to vote on this special permit?
Yes.
Okay.
as amended.
So motion to continue continue item number 8 to September 11th?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up item number 9 and open the public hearing?
Hang on a second on that one.
Okay.
I'm supposed to have a communication here from them relative to Hot House Holyoke. My understanding was that they are, whoops. Sure. My understanding is they're withdrawing the application, but I do not see, I don't see the correspondence to that effect. Ryan, if you're downstairs and the correspondence is somewhere where I can see it,
Are you aware of this, Marcos?
yes, my understanding is they sent in a letter.
What was the question? That they sent a letter?
My understanding is that they sent a letter and they were withdrawing their application at this time.
Yes, they're withdrawing their application. They will be submitting a new application shortly.
But I just thought the letter was physically going to be here, and I just don't see it.
Oh, I see. I don't have a copy of that letter. I have the same understanding. They're changing locations. So that requires them to submit a new application because it's all about the site.
So motion to give leave to withdraw without prejudice, right?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Well, wait, I withdraw the all in favor. I want to make a comment before the close of the meeting. Now, I try to follow proper procedures. I'm only human. Every once in a while, I might make a mistake. I would say that tonight, the mistake that I made was to entertain input after the public hearing was closed, which I had not allowed in the prior hearing. I was looking at it in a different context, but I do think the same rule did apply. And I would also like to note that I hope in the future I will not have anyone calling out to me from the chambers in the council, be it legal, staff, or anybody else. Thank you.
Adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.